Welcome to today's 5 Good Minutes on the 10 Commandments. Today we'll be considering the 4th commandment with Russ Brasher.
My son Bennett is in the 3rd grade, and now that school is back in session, this means that every Friday he is going to have a spelling test. What this also means is now every Thursday night, usually by about 8 p.m., you can hear my wife's voice call out somewhere from the house, "Bennett, did you remember to study your spelling words?" And what this extension of grace does for my son is it forces him to remember not only does he has a spelling test, but he needs to get up off the couch and stop doing whatever he was doing that wasn't studying for his spelling test. And he needs to go to the table, grab his spelling words, and start to study them. And the reason my wife yells out and asks Bennett this question is because she loves my son and she wants him to be successful in all areas of life, including school, especially spelling, which, if I'm honest, is not my son's strength. And so Bennett benefits greatly from this extension of grace from his mom to weekly remind him that he needs to go and study. And the reason I share this story with you is because all week long we've been looking at the 4th commandment. And again, if you look at the list, all 10 in Exodus 20, you'll notice that 8 out of the 10 commandments that God gives us start with a "you shall not" command. There's only 2 that don't. The 5th says and starts by saying, "Honor your father and mother." But the 4th commandment is the only one that God starts by saying to us, remember. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. And I don't think that this word remember is there by coincidence. I think God was intentional to start this commandment using that specific word, remember. I mean, I think God knew that we would just naturally struggle to remember this commandment, to hold it at its highest level of importance and priority in our lives, that we would struggle to see the consequences of what it means to not remember the Sabbath, and how quickly, as we talked about yesterday, our identity could easily get wrapped up in our busyness, in our works, and we would lose sight of Him and His works and where our identity does come from in the saving work of Jesus Christ and Christ alone. Because this word remember holds a lot of weight in Scripture. What we know about this word remember is that it is used over 352 times in Scripture. And that number goes up to 550 if you count all of the variants associated with the word remember. For example, the 10 Commandments is also found in Deuteronomy 5. And the 4th commandment there, instead of the word remember, it says that we are to observe, not just remember, but observe the Sabbath and keeping it holy. And the word remember itself is rooted in this concept to be mindful. That when we remember, not only should we be mindful, not only should we have it on our mind, we should look back and remember. But this word also implies that it should inspire us, that when it comes to our mind, it should inspire us to act or do something. And I think that's helpful for us to actually remember what the word remember means in Scripture. That not only is God calling us to remember, but God is calling us to act because we are remembering. In this case, act by remembering to rest. One commentary I found said that when we remember, what it allows us to do is respond to the world. Instead of with fear, we get to respond with hope. That when we remember, it allows us to put things in their right perspective and to be actively applying hope to the situation or scenario instead of fear. And that's what happens when we pause from our hard work, our day-to-day, and take time in our schedule to rest, to remember who God is, how faithful he is, how good he is, the ways in which he provides, that he is sovereign, that he is in control, that he has sent his son to save us, to pay the price for our sin, past, present, and future. This is what it means to remember. And this is why we are commanded by God to remember the Sabbath, not just to remember it in thought, but to act on it and do it. Because it's when we do so that we find our true identity and we find rest in the Lord our God.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check out all our content and podcasts on Orchard Hill Plus. You can find that and so much more on our website or the Orchard Hill app.